Arsenal 2, Bilbao 0. Good start to the Champions League campaign. All we could have asked for. On the road, 3 points, get ourselves moving. Wasn't the most entertaining game, particularly the first half, but there were some good moments in there and some things that just made you smile. You know, Gabriel Martinelli getting on the score sheet. It makes you smile. We're going to get into it. And before we do, if I could just ask you to subscribe and like the video, that would be very much appreciated. But look, the team news came out, and I think it was a bit surprising. I think the midfield was a little bit surprising, seeing that same midfield three that we saw against Liverpool. No Waneri in there was a little bit disappointing, to be honest. Like, that was my immediate reaction, was almost disappointment for him. Because like I said, after the game against Forest, I felt that was his best midfield performance so far. And I thought this was a good opportunity for him to build on that, given that Ødegaard still wasn't available. Now, whether or not that was the right decision, we got 3 points. So arguably, Arteta got it bang on. And we'll talk about how the game went and how that kind of benefited us and also held us back a little bit. Outside of that, it was pretty much as you'd have expected. Obviously, well, Timber and Gabriel Calafiori both starting again. Would have liked to see them rested a little bit. But that was what it was. In terms of the game itself, you know, I think Arsenal deserved to win it. We both had 11 shots, but Arsenal had 6 on target. 3 of them were proper chances. Just over 1 XG for us, 0.4 for them. I do think we deserved to win the game. And it came, of course, from 2 substitutes. Absolutely from 2 substitutes. Leandro Trossard and Gabriel Martinelli. For the first goal, it's the flick on from Trossard into Martinelli. And this is where Martinelli is a threat, right? Centrally, where he can use his pace, cause problems, and at the end of the move, be in a position where he can get a shot off. Now, the first touch that he took was actually quite poor. It came off his head. He leaves it behind himself a little bit. But that second touch is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant, because he does it on the volley. So as he's moving ahead of the ball to just flick it back into his path and then turn the burners back on again, I thought was really, really good. And then the composure in front of goal. Now, look, does he aim to go under Unai Simon in the way that he does? I don't know. I don't care. He really needed that goal. And I think we as a fan base needed that goal. I think look, I don't think you like to criticize any player, but he's one of the players that every time I criticize him, I want to hold back. I want to hold back on that criticism because I love him. And yeah, I think he needed that. We needed that. And in the context of the tie, like, we needed to break that tie open. We were struggling to create too many clear-cut chances, and that was a really well-taken goal. And then, of course, a few minutes later, again, he picks the ball up out here, and these are the sorts of situations where, now that we've got Eze, for example, you say 1v1, that's where he's going to thrive. Martinelli, he can be a bit hit and miss, right? And recently, there have been times where it was getting a bit frustrating, but this time it looked like there was more purpose, and maybe it was the confidence from the goal previously, but, you know, it looked like there was more confidence. He knew exactly what he wanted to do. He took it around the outside of his man, and then when he gets to here, this is where I want to see Martinelli using his brain, right? Using the football intelligence, and he does. He waits for Trossard to drop off into the space, then he finds him, and of course, Trossard finds the back of the net. Now, how good is it to have those two coming on in the way that they did as impact substitutes? This is what the summer window that we had has now allowed us to do, that depth. You know, I saw someone say on Twitter, last season, given the injuries that we've got, last season, if you wanted to then make 2 subs, you'd be bringing on Sterling and Butler or Odeji, you know? And now it's Martinelli and Trossard. I mean, Leandro Trossard, 36 minutes between this game and the game against Nottingham Forest. That's all he's played off the bench. 3 goal contributions. 1 goal, 2 assists. Very good impact. And Martinelli, I think he can have that impact too. And the great thing with Martinelli is most game states, you can bring him on around the 70th minute and it will be a good impact. If you're chasing the game, that extra bit of pace will add something. Actually, if you're already up, the defensive work rate that he has will add something too. So I think that's really, really positive. And of course, it's not just their depth. You know, we saw late on in the game, not that we necessarily needed them to, but bringing on Christian Norgard and Hincapié to see out the game. Like that level of depth, to have them come on and see out the game is really impressive. Outside of that, I've got to talk about Christian Mosquera. Like, this was his first ever Champions League game. He's 21 years old. first ever Champions League. He absolutely bossed it. And that was the thing about this game, right? It was a physical game. It was a big atmosphere, a physical game. He was completely unfazed. Like, it was like, this is just his bread and butter. This is what he does week in, week out. Physically, he's so strong. He's quick. His recovery pace, the way that he reads the game, I'm just more and more impressed by Christian Mosquera. And it's such a relief to be in a position where we don't need to rush William Saliba back. You know, what a relief that is. So really impressed with him. In terms of the rest of the team, Jurrien Timber, I thought, had a solid game. I mean, looking at this defensive unit now, right, we've conceded 1 goal this season. We're now 5 games into the season. We've conceded 1 goal. And that was a worldie from Dominic Szoboszlai in a game where we conceded very little else. This is without Saliba for half of that time. And I just think you've got Hincapié, you've got Miles Lewis-Skelly, you've got Ben White, of course, as well. It's a serious defence. And, of course, that's a platform to build on. What I did think in the first half was that Merino, Zubimendi, Rice is just a bit of a clunky midfield, right? And we were struggling to create. And it was a little bit frustrating. And there were calls for Nwaneri at halftime. I was calling for Nwaneri at halftime. I won't pretend that I wasn't, just because I wanted someone to try and open up the game a little bit more, because it wasn't the best watch. Having said that, Arteta away in Europe likes us to be solid, right? He likes the building block to be a solid clean sheet and then see what you can do. And now that we're in a position where you can bring on Trossard, you can bring on Martinelli. I mean, once Saka's back, you may well even be able to bring on a Madueke or an Eze if one of them hasn't started. I mean, you've still got Nwaneri and Dalman that didn't come on either. Like, there's so much to come off the bench now that it's not the end of the world. If you play out the first 60 minutes in a hostile atmosphere, you ride it out, and then you can bring on those subs against largely opposition that won't be able to bring on the same caliber of player. I don't mind it. I don't mind it as a tactic. And today, ultimately, it worked out really well. Declan Rice, I thought, had a slow first half. He did well, given that he was on a yellow for the majority of the game. Zubimendi, the same. I thought he was solid. Madueke, I thought, was decent. Got into some good positions. Could have had an assist for Eze if he'd been a bit quicker on his feet. Victor Gyökeres, I thought, had a really good game today. One of his best games, I reckon. Beating the offside trap, bullying those Bilbao defenders. Unlucky with that diving header. Maybe you could argue he should score it. Equally, I think he does well to get to it. It was a brilliant ball in from Jurrien Timber. And then I want to talk about Eze, because I can sense an agenda. I can sense an agenda coming. And listening to the commentary on, for us, it was TNT Sports, Darren Fletcher and Ali McCoist, very early on, they wanted to run this narrative that Eze shouldn't be playing off the left, that Eze's not going to work off the left, that Eze wasn't in the game at all. And they're right to an extent that for large parts, Eze struggled to get into the game. There were still moments where, there were flashes, I suppose, of brilliance. There was a lovely ball he played out to Madueke at one point. But yeah, in this game, struggled to get into it a little bit. But they were acting like it was the same against Nottingham Forest. That was the thing I couldn't understand. And they just kept bringing it up again and again and again. That was what it was, it was just incessantly mentioning Eze off the left and how it's not going to work and how he's going to have to play in the middle. And that seems like, it was a narrative that we saw on social media when we made the signing. Oh, Arteta's going to ruin him by playing him off the left. I just don't buy into it. Now, should he be given more freedom? Yes. Would I like to see him playing centrally at times? Yes. Was there a point in the game, actually, when Trossard came on for Merino, that I thought that the solution was going to be Trossard on the left, Merino up top, and Eze in midfield? Yes. That said, against Nottingham Forest, he was very good off the left. He was very impactful off the left. He was skinning Nico Williams, got a great assist for Gyökeres. So I don't want people to get dragged into that already, because I can see it's going to be a thing. But look, for Arsenal, for the game, 3 points on the board, away, job done. Now, get home. Don't think anyone's injured. Hopefully, Calafiori took a bit of a whack to the back of the Achilles. Gyökeres obviously got a bit of a cut on his head. Merino got a cut on his head as well. Hopefully, neither of those ruled them out of the Man City game. And now we've got a few days to recover. Obviously, Man City themselves play on Thursday, so they have less recovery time. But yeah, overall, happy. I don't, and I think this was an important game as well. You can't underestimate how important it is to get the 3 points on the board, move on, and that's what we've done. So there you go. Happy days. Like I said, if you are new to the channel, please do subscribe. Please do click that like button. We'll be back with a live stream probably tomorrow, I reckon. And also apologies for the people that tried to tune into the Big Up stream. We were having technical difficulties on Big Up today. So I do apologize for that. But look, thank you for watching. I do appreciate it. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening, and going into a Wednesday tomorrow. And I'll catch you all on the next one. Until then, goodbye.